subcommittee meets today to mark up an original bill, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026. Once again this year, we will hold the subcommittee marked up in an open session. I'm confident that we can conduct our business publicly without disclosing classified information or adversely impacting the process. In this regard, I ask that any senator wishing to offer an amendment or raise an issue of a classified nature defer that the full committee's consideration. Although this subcommittee meeting is in an open session, the entire contents of the markup book are subject to amendments throughout its consideration by the Armed Services Committee and are therefore embargoed until passage by the full committee and reported to the Senate. I want to thank Ranking Member Warren for her hard work on this subcommittee. We've worked together in a bipartisan manner to draft this year's personnel mark, and I appreciate her dedication to our service members and their families. We have before us today a legislative package that contains 51 legislative provisions and 42 items of special interest. Since the details of the legislative package were provided to the staffs of committee members, I will limit my comments to some of the highlights. Key aspects of the subcommittee markup are: authorizes military in-strength levels consistent with the President's budget request, improves the efficiency and fairness of the disability evaluation system, integrates all Army professional military education under a newly codified Army university, authorizes $50 million in supplemental impact aid to local educational agencies with military-dependent children and $30 million in impact aid for schools with military-dependent children with severe disabilities, requires the Secretary of Defense to improve the staffing of special education teachers and staff at Department of Defense schools, increases the requirements number of junior reserve officers training course program by 100 units, authorizes a cash bonus program payment program for anyone who volunteers to serve as a junior reserve officer training corps instructors, requires improved transparency into the various allowances, bonuses, and tax benefits of military compensation, extends the sunset date of the authority to provide early retirement and voluntary separation pay and benefits, adds additional justification and notification requirements before the Secretary of Defense may close or downsize a military medical facility, creates a graduate medical education partnership demonstration program, requires priority assessments of military medical personnel of DoD hospitals and clinics, requires the Comptroller General and Conduct to review and issue a report on the curriculum offered at military service academies. These are only a few highlights of the legislative package we present for markup. Finally, I would like to thank the staff, both minority and majority, for all their support they have provided during this process. Specifically, I would like to recognize Sean, Megan, Kate, Brandon, and Isaac for their hard work and dedication. At this point, I invite Ranking Member Warren to make an open statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for continuing this subcommittee's tradition of holding this markup in open session. It's powerfully important to show that Congress works together in a bipartisan manner to honor our promises to take care of our service members and their families. And I am grateful for the work that you have done here and the dedication you've shown and your staff, who have been remarkable to work with. I am particularly proud that this mark provides critical support for exceptional families, including requiring the Director of the Department of Defense Education Activity to improve staffing of special education teachers and staff to meet the needs of our military families. This mark also authorizes additional funding for military-connected school districts, including $10 million for impact aid payments for children with severe disabilities and $20 million for local schools the Secretary of Defense identifies as having high concentrations of military children with severe disabilities. And I very much appreciate your support on that. It's very important. There are also a number of ways that this mark falls short. I remain deeply concerned by the Trump administration's attacks on the rule of law and Congress's constitutional role to conduct oversight. Congress has never received the statutorily required explanation for this administration's decision to remove the Department of Defense Inspector General. There was also no justification ever provided to Congress for removing the top legal advisors for the military services, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the chief of naval operations, or the commander of Cyber Command and the National Security Agency. This mark includes important guardrails to ensure continued professionalism in the military, including requiring congressional notification for removing the military's top legal advisors and reiterating the importance of independent legal advice of judge advocates. But we need to do much more to address the destruction done by this administration. I look forward to working with my colleagues to continue to build on these reforms in the full committee markup. Secretary Hegseth's attacks on transgender troops, on women, and on people of color are a grave mistake that will damage our military for decades. We owe these highly qualified service members who have served their country for decades our gratitude, not the contempt and cruelty that current leaders at the Pentagon have dished up. When people are qualified and they want to serve, then our military should welcome them. If Congress passes an NDAA that prioritizes waging culture wars over fighting America's enemies, then our nation will be weakened. Finally, there is one provision that I am particularly pleased to have included. I have been concerned about brain injury risks from blast overpressure since I first joined the Armed Services Committee in 2016. I worked with Senator Ernst to secure a long-term study of blast overpressure injuries in the FY 2018 NDAA, and I secured additional requirements to track blast overpressure injuries in the FY 2020 NDAA. Last year's NDAA included historic reforms taken from my Blast Overpressure Safety Act, and I appreciate the help with Senator Scott in moving this forward. These reforms help commanders better protect their troops from unnecessary exposure by collecting more data on blast overpressure risks during the weapons testing and acquisition process. Last year's bill also required DoD to update blast overpressure safety thresholds based on more comprehensive criteria, and it encourages DoD to partner with outside organizations to improve service members' access to care when they suffer the effects of blast overpressure. As a result of more attention and more research funding, we are learning that brain injury is a serious problem in our military, but it is only part of the story. Research now shows that the special operations community is experiencing higher rates of cardiovascular health challenges like heart disease, more chronic pain, and elevated rates of hypertension. Doctors are also starting to see special operations forces experience above-the-neck tumors and cancers at rates that are considerably higher than would otherwise be expected in people of similar age and similar physical conditions. The numbers are preliminary, but the patterns are deeply disturbing. This mark requires DoD to explore the feasibility of a study on the long-term consequences of blast overpressure so that we can better understand what we're up against and prevent future tragedies. DoD would benefit enormously by partnering up with outside experts to conduct a longitudinal study on the lasting effects of blast overpressure. So this is a big one. I hope we will keep pushing on this in our time ahead. These are only a few of the highlights of the legislative package we present for markup. I want to thank all of the members of the subcommittee and the full committee for their work, as well as their staff. I especially want to thank committee staff, John Clark, whose birthday it is today, and we are holding this hearing in your honor. Gary Lealing, Andy Scott, Sophia Kamali, Noah Sisk, Jenny Davis, Sean O'Keefe, Brendan Gavin, Katie Magnus, Megan Galindo, Isaac Jalikson, Greg Lilly, and Leah Brewer. Thank you all. Your work is how we get this done.
Thanks, Senator Warren. I think John blushed a little bit when you said that.
I think you did.
Would any other member like to make a statement? All right, traditionally, the subcommittee has used the chairman's mark as a markup vehicle without objection. We'll use the chairman's mark as a markup vehicle subject to amendment. Consistent with the practice and precedent of both this subcommittee and the full committee, the following amendments will not be in order and will not be considered. Amendments involving a significant matter that is not within the jurisdiction of the subcommittee. Amendments that contain a significant matter not within the jurisdiction of the full committee. Amendments that involve shared jurisdiction with another committee that has not agreed to consideration of the amendment for inclusion in this subcommittee's markup. Amendments that would constitute an earmark. Amendments to add funding that are not accompanied by an offset. If any senator proposed an amendment that would increase spending, he or she must also identify an offset to pay for it, unless the offset can be made from the funding under the jurisdiction of this subcommittee, and amendment must be offered at the full committee. We have received 41 amendments that have been cleared by both sides. This package, starting with Shaheen 7 Modified 1 and ending with Duckworth 499 Modified 1, has been provided to all members and is in front of you. Is there any objection to adopting these amendments? Without objection, the manager's package is adopted. Are there any other amendments? I will entertain a motion that the subcommittee adopt these agreed amendments as well as the budgetary lines designated for this subcommittee contained in the general provisions mark as part of the subcommittee mark. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion is agreed to. I move that the recommendations of the subcommittee be reported to the full committee and that the staff be authorized to draft bill and report language implementing agreements reached today and to make necessary technical and conforming changes. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion is agreed to. Is there any other business to come before the subcommittee? Before we conclude, I want to recognize Senator Warren once more for her work as ranking member in this subcommittee and express my appreciation for her partnership. This subcommittee is adjourned.
Nicely done, Mr. Chairman.
Done. Done.